HOA Karen reserved my lake mansion for 100 guests, so I sued each one for $100,000 and won. I never thought I'd wake up one morning and find a stranger's event banner hanging over my lake mansion gate. Big bold letters said, "Private HOA Summer Gala, Members Only." I remember standing there on the gravel driveway, still in my slippers, coffee mug halfway to my mouth, wondering if I was dreaming. But the sound of a generator humming, voices chattering, and catering vans pulling up said otherwise. You see, I'd bought that mansion as my retirement dream. A peaceful slice of heaven beside Lake Cedarwood. I had worked 30 years in real estate law, saved every penny, and finally found this lake property tucked away from city chaos. It was supposed to be quiet. Private. What? But then the HOA, especially its self-proclaimed Queen Karen, decided she didn't like that someone not from the original neighborhood owned what she called their community's jewel. At first it was small things. Letters about approved fence colors, complaints about my dock being too long, and even a note that my flagpole was an eyesore. I ignored them. I wasn't technically under the HOA jurisdiction. My property sat just outside their border. But that didn't stop Karen. She saw my mansion as a trophy she couldn't control, and that ate her alive. So when I found out she had reserved my mansion for her HOA Summer Gala, I thought it was a bad joke. I checked my phone, no calls, no messages, no permission asked. Nothing. I walked closer to the front lawn and saw tents being set up. People in matching polo shirts unloading tables, food trays, coolers. Some of them even waved at me thinking I was staff. I walked right up to one guy arranging wine glasses. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "what are you doing on my property?" He blinked at me. "Sir, we're setting up for the HOA event. Mrs. Karen told us it's her venue. She said the owner's her friend." I felt my blood pressure spike. "Her friend?" I said. "I'm the owner. And trust me, I'm not friends with anyone named Karen." The guy froze. Then awkwardly he called someone on his radio. A few minutes later, Karen appeared, wearing her oversized sunglasses, holding a clipboard, and walking like she owned the ground beneath her. "Well, good morning, neighbor," she said with that fake smile she used whenever she wanted something. "Don't worry about the mess, we'll clean up after the event." "Event?" I asked, stepping forward. "Karen, this is my property. You can't just waltz in and host 100 people here." She gave a dramatic sigh as if I were a stubborn child. "Actually, I can. The Lake Association Board approved the use of the Cedarwood Lakeside area for the summer gala. Your property falls into that zone." "No," I said firmly, "it doesn't. My deed explicitly says I'm outside HOA jurisdiction. You have no legal right to use my home. None." She smirked. "We'll see about that. You should have read the community bylaws. It's a public space event for the greater lake community." I laughed. "Public space? This is a fenced mansion with security cameras and a locked gate. How is that public?" She shrugged. Details. "Now if you don't mind, I have guests arriving. I suggest you relax and enjoy the company. You might even make some friends." That was it. That smug, entitled tone. She turned away as if I were invisible, and that's when something inside me snapped. I walked back into my house, locked the doors, and pulled up my property documents. I knew I was right, legally and morally. And as an attorney, I had all the tools I needed to make her regret ever stepping foot on my land. But I didn't call the cops, not yet. I wanted to see just how far she'd take it. By noon, cars started lining up all down the road. Mercedes, BMWs, even a few limos. Guests in cocktail dresses and suits started streaming through my gate like it was their own backyard. Music blasted from rented speakers. Waiters carried trays of champagne. Someone even inflated a bounce house on my lawn, for kids I'd never seen before. And right in the center of it all stood Karen, basking in attention like a queen at her coronation. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Every single car, every single face, every single logo on a catering van. I documented it all. Because while Karen thought this was just a party, I knew I was collecting evidence. When I walked back outside to confront her again, she had the nerve to hand me a name tag. "Here you go," she said cheerfully. "It's open bar until 6. Please don't make a scene, we have donors here." "Donors?" I repeated. "Yes," she said, "the HOA fundraising committee. We're raising money for the new gate project and community landscaping. Oh, and we're raffling off a weekend at your mansion as one of the prizes." Cute, right? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She had literally turned my property into a fundraiser venue without my permission, and was offering my mansion as a raffle prize. I smiled. "That's cute," I said slowly. Because when this is over, you'll be raffling off your house to pay my legal fees. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Just enjoy yourself. I walked away again, pretending to leave it alone. But inside I was burning with fury and focus. By that evening there were over 100 guests. My driveway looked like a luxury car dealership. My dock had people dancing on it. My pool had strangers swimming. My kitchen staff, hired by her, was cooking in my home. I stood from my upstairs window filming every angle. Then I called my assistant Lisa. Hey, it's me. I need a list of the Cedarwood HOA board members, all the vendors they've used today, and a copy of their event permit if it exists. Lisa chuckled. Sounds like they messed with the wrong lawyer again. Oh, they did more than that, I said. They just hosted a trespass and illegal business event on private property. I'm thinking 100 counts of unauthorized use and damages. She paused. You're serious? Dead serious. That night, as the party went on, I made sure every car that left passed by my driveway camera. I printed their license plates later. I noted every sponsor and vendor logo. By midnight, when the music died down and the guests left, my once pristine lawn looked like a battlefield. Tire marks, broken glass, trash floating in the lake. Karen had the audacity to wave at me on her way out. Thanks for being a good sport, she shouted. See you at the next board meeting. I didn't say a word. I just smiled. Because I knew she had just dug her own grave and dragged 100 people in with her. The next morning, I woke up early and started drafting the first batch of legal notices. Trespassing, unauthorized event, and damages to private property. But I wasn't stopping there. I added a clause: emotional distress, invasion of privacy, and property misuse for commercial gain. And because each guest had stepped onto my land, each was liable. Lisa called me later that day. You're really going after all of them? She asked. Every single one, I said. They wanted a party? They're getting the after party in court. That afternoon, I had a drone team fly over the property to capture the damage for evidence. Broken fence posts, trampled flower beds, scorch marks from barbecue setups. The cleaning bill alone was over 10 grand. Karen tried to spin the story later, of course. She sent me a letter pretending it was all a misunderstanding. We assumed the lakefront was part of common grounds, she wrote. No harm intended. But it was too late for that. I sent her a formal reply and attached the invoices. Since you organized and authorized an illegal event on private property, I wrote, you are jointly and severally liable for the damages and trespassing claims. Additionally, every individual participant present will receive a personal suit for $100,000 each. Her reply came fast. You wouldn't dare. Oh, but I would. And that's how the real war began. She thought she could control the lake. She thought she could bully me into submission like all her neighbors. But she didn't realize I wasn't just another homeowner. I was the guy who wrote property law textbooks for a living. I filed the first round of lawsuits 2 weeks later. The courthouse clerk raised an eyebrow when she saw the stack. All these defendants were at the same party? Yep, I said, smiling. And they all trespassed on my property. She whistled. This is going to make headlines. Good, I said. Make sure Karen gets front row seats. Within days, subpoenas started landing in mailboxes across Cedarwood. Shocked residents called me, begged me to drop it, claimed they didn't know. I told them politely, ignorance isn't a defense to trespassing. And Karen? She went silent. At least for a while. Because what came next was her biggest mistake yet. When I sent out those lawsuits, I expected outrage. But even I wasn't prepared for the chaos that followed. It started with the phone calls. My voicemail filled up overnight with messages from panicked HOA members. Please, I didn't know it was your property. I thought it was a community event. My husband's a lawyer, can we settle this quietly? I didn't respond to any of them. I wasn't after quick settlements. I was after accountability. Then came Karen's letter. A thick, printed envelope stamped with the HOA's official crest like she was running a government. Inside was a single page that started with, cease and desist your frivolous legal actions immediately. I laughed so hard reading it I nearly spilled my coffee. The letter went on to claim that my lawsuits were an act of harassment against the HOA and its members, and that they would be filing a countersuit for emotional trauma, defamation, and loss of community trust. Typical Karen move: threaten, deflect, pretend she's the victim. I called Lisa. She's filing a countersuit. Lisa chuckled. Let me guess, she doesn't even have standing? Exactly, I said. You can't file a class action countersuit when you're the one trespassing. Still, I knew Karen wouldn't stop there. She'd make it loud, public, and she did. The next day, a local reporter showed up at my gate. "Mr. Collins, we heard you're suing 100 people for attending a charity event?" I could see Karen's handprints all over this. The media spin was already in motion. I smiled politely at the reporter. "You can call it what you want," I said. "But in my view, it's called trespassing and theft of property use." "Are you saying you didn't give permission?" he asked. "I'm saying I didn't even know about the event until I saw people swimming in my pool." The story aired that night. Local man sues HOA members for $100,000 each after charity party. And of course, Karen went on record claiming it was a misunderstanding turned witch hunt. But what she didn't realize was that the story didn't hurt me, it helped. Because every time she opened her mouth, she confirmed that she had organized the event. I started building my case stronger. I had videos, timestamps, license plates, drone footage, even text messages from vendors confirming Karen had booked everything on behalf of the HOA. Then something interesting happened. One of the vendors, a catering company, reached out to me privately. "We were told you gave permission," the owner said nervously. "She even showed us an email." "An email?" I asked. "From me?" He forwarded it. My jaw clenched as I read it. It was a fake email. Karen had actually forged a message pretending to be me, granting permission for the event. The signature line had my name, my old firm's email domain, even my digital signature copied from a legal document I'd filed years ago. That changed everything. Now it wasn't just trespassing. It was fraud. I called Lisa again. "Get our IT expert on this. I want metadata pulled, timestamps verified. We're adding forgery to the charges." By now, Karen's arrogance was catching up with her. HOA members who used to adore her were starting to panic. They realized they'd been manipulated. A week later, I got a knock on the door. It was an older man in a suit, Harold, one of the HOA board members. "Can I talk to you?" he asked quietly. I nodded and invited him in. He looked embarrassed, almost defeated. "Look," he said, "I had no idea she didn't have permission. She told all of us you were sponsoring the event. I even donated $5,000 to the HOA fund that day." "So she took money?" I asked. He nodded. "Everyone paid something. Tickets, donations, raffles. She said it was all legit." My eyes narrowed. "You mean she charged people to attend a party on my property?" "Exactly," he said. "We thought it was her place or she rented it from you. I swear, I never would have come otherwise." I leaned back in my chair. "That's not a fundraiser," I said. "That's a commercial scam. And she did it on private land." Harold sighed. "You're not the only one she's burned. The HOA treasurer found out she's been using community funds for her personal expenses too." I smiled faintly. "Good. Keep the receipts." He looked up. "So what happens now?" I looked out the window at the lake, calm, quiet, perfect. "Now," I said, "we teach her what happens when you trespass against the wrong man." That week, my legal filings grew thicker. Forgery, fraud, property misuse, and unauthorized commercial activity were added to the list. Then came the pretrial hearing. I'll never forget the look on Karen's face when she walked into the courtroom. She strutted in wearing a bright red blazer, hair perfectly curled, smile confident as ever. Behind her were a few of the HOA members she hadn't alienated yet, the ones who still thought she'd somehow win. Her attorney stood up first. A smug young guy with shiny shoes and too much confidence. "Your Honor," he began, "this entire case is an overreaction. My client organized a charity event in good faith, believing she had permission. This man's lawsuits are vindictive." Judge Reynolds, a sharp man in his 60s, leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Collins," he said, "your response?" I stood. "Your Honor, I'll make this simple. My client is me. I own that property. I did not give permission. The defendant forged an email to make it look like I did. She then charged 100 guests to attend a paid event on my land. That's not charity, that's fraud." The judge's eyebrows rose. "Do you have evidence of the forgery?" I nodded and handed him a folder. "Digital forensics confirms the email originated from her device, not mine. The IP address is tied to her HOA office network." Karen's face went pale. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up a hand. "Objection overruled. Continue." I turned back to the courtroom. "Your Honor, I'm not here to destroy anyone's life. But actions have consequences. These people didn't just invade my property, they made money off it. Every guest, every vendor, every ticket sold was built on a lie. And that's why they're each being held accountable. The judge nodded slowly. We'll proceed to discovery. As soon as the hearing ended, reporters swarmed outside the courthouse. Cameras flashed, microphones were shoved in my face. Mr. Collins, is it true you're seeking over $10 million in damages? Correct, I said calmly. That's 100 guests, 100,000 each. Plus repair costs. Karen pushed through the crowd, shouting, "He's ruining our community. This is extortion." I turned to her, keeping my voice level. No, Karen. This is justice. That night the story went viral. Social media exploded with clips of the hearing. Some called me petty. Others called me a hero. But the best part? The HOA members started turning against Karen publicly. Messages leaked, angry text chains from residents demanding refunds, questioning her leadership, exposing how she'd mishandled HOA funds for years. And then the real twist dropped. One of the members posted the HOA's internal budget report, showing Karen had spent over $20,000 of maintenance funds on event coordination fees and personal reimbursements. The comment section went nuclear. Wait, she used our fees for her party? She said it was all donated. She's been lying for years. I didn't have to lift a finger, she was imploding on her own. Meanwhile, my legal strategy tightened. I sent settlement offers to all the individual guests. Each one could pay a reduced fine if they signed sworn statements confirming Karen had told them I approved the event. Within a week, 75 people settled. That gave me written proof from 75 witnesses that Karen had lied. By the time the second hearing rolled around, Karen's side was crumbling. Her lawyer tried to negotiate behind the scenes. My client's willing to offer a public apology and cover cleanup costs, he said. I shook my head. Too late for that. He frowned. You really want to bankrupt her? No, I said. I want to make sure she never bullies another homeowner again. The next day, Karen tried to save face at a community meeting. I watched from a distance as she stood on the stage, microphone trembling in her hand. Neighbors, she began, this lawsuit is tearing us apart. We have to stay united against this outsider. But her words fell flat. Someone shouted, You forged an email, Karen? Another yelled, You stole our money. The crowd turned on her fast. Her voice cracked as she tried to speak. I did what I thought was best. No, you did what was best for you. That's when she ran off the stage, tears in her eyes. I should have felt satisfied, but honestly, it just confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't used to losing control. And this was only the beginning. Because while she was busy defending her reputation, I was busy expanding the case. My team traced the payment platform she'd used for ticket sales, an HOA charity account that routed directly to her personal savings. Over $12,000 in deposits appeared within 2 days of the event. We froze the account. When Karen found out, she stormed into the courthouse screaming about rights violations. But this time nobody was listening. Even her own lawyer started to distance himself. During the next hearing, Judge Reynolds looked directly at her. Mrs. Turner, he said, your actions are not only unlawful but deceitful. You forged documents, misled your community, and profited from private property. Unless you have something to say in your defense, I suggest you prepare for sentencing. Karen stared at the floor, silent. The courtroom was dead quiet. I looked at her, not with anger anymore but with a strange mix of pity and disbelief. She could have avoided all of this. All she had to do was ask. When the hearing ended, I stepped outside to face the reporters again. Mr. Collins, what's next for you? One asked. I smiled faintly. Next, I finish what I started. Justice isn't about revenge, it's about respect. She disrespected my home, my rights, and my peace. And that's something money can't fix, but the law can. Karen left the courthouse through the side door, hiding behind sunglasses. But I knew this wasn't the end. Because what she did next took everything to a whole new level. After the second hearing, things got quiet around Cedarwood. Too quiet. The once bustling lake community turned into a ghost town. No HOA meetings, no barbecues, no gossiping by the mailboxes. Everyone was scared, not of me but of what Karen might do next. Because when Karen was silent, it meant she was planning something. And sure enough, a week later, I got a thick package delivered by certified mail. Inside was a stack of papers labeled, Emergency Petition for Property Injunction. Karen had filed a motion to freeze the sale and use of my mansion, claiming it was public property under implied community use. In simpler terms, she was trying to take ownership of my land. I actually laughed out loud. She's really trying to steal it now, I said to Lisa over the phone. Lisa didn't sound surprised. I told you she doesn't quit until she crashes. Oh, she's about to crash, I said, flipping through the pages. She just made her biggest mistake yet, she put it all in writing. That motion meant she had sworn under penalty of perjury that the property was part of the HOA. But I had the recorded deed, the survey maps, and the purchase contracts, all showing the opposite. She just handed me evidence of fraud under oath. I wasted no time. My team drafted a new motion for malicious prosecution and perjury, attaching her fake claims. We filed it the next morning. The hearing date was set for the following week, and this one drew more attention than any before. The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the walls. HOA members filled the benches, whispering nervously. Even people from neighboring towns came to watch. It had become the most talked about case in Cedar County. When Karen walked in, she looked different. The fire was gone. Her once perfect hair was tied back in a tight bun, her makeup smudged, her hands trembling. But she still held that same clipboard like it was a shield. Her new lawyer, the third one she'd hired since the case began, stood beside her, flipping nervously through notes. Judge Reynolds entered, adjusted his glasses, and said, "We're here today to address Mrs. Turner's motion for injunction and Mr. Collins' counterclaim for perjury and malicious prosecution. Mrs. Turner, you may proceed." Karen stood up. Her voice wavered but carried through the courtroom. "Your Honor, I was under the impression that the lakefront area, including Mr. Collins' residence, was part of the community land. I only sought to preserve its use for everyone. I never intended harm." I raised an eyebrow. That was her defense? Impression? The judge nodded slowly. "Do you have any documentation proving that this property falls under HOA jurisdiction?" Karen hesitated. "Well, no official map, but—" "That's enough," the judge said sharply. "Mr. Collins?" I stood, calm and deliberate. "Your Honor, my property was purchased under Title Deed 48B 672. It sits outside the HOA's legal boundaries by 0.7 miles. The HOA's own charter confirms this. And I have the certified survey map from the county." I handed the documents to the clerk, who passed them up to the judge. He glanced through them, then looked at Karen. "Mrs. Turner, this appears to be irrefutable." Karen stammered, but the residents use the lake." "The lake is public," I interrupted politely. "The land around it is not. You crossed that line, literally." The courtroom chuckled softly. Karen's face flushed red. "He's twisting this," she snapped. "He's suing innocent people. I was just trying to bring the community together." I looked straight at her. "By forging emails, lying to vendors, and pocketing money from ticket sales?" Her lawyer tried to interject, but the judge raised his hand. "Order. Mrs. Turner, is there any truth to the claim that you profited from this event?" Karen froze. "No, of course not." I handed another document to the clerk. "Bank statements, Your Honor." $12,462 deposited into her personal account labeled as event donations. These funds came directly from ticket sales managed through her HOA PayPal account. The courtroom erupted with murmurs. Cameras clicked. The judge tapped his gavel for silence. "Mrs. Turner, do you deny these deposits?" Karen's lips trembled. "Those were reimbursements. For event costs." "Event costs," I said quietly, "for a venue you didn't own, using money you didn't raise legally on land you trespassed." Judge Reynolds looked over his glasses. "Mrs. Turner, it appears your actions go beyond misunderstanding. They border on fraud and deliberate deception." Karen's eyes darted around the room. The crowd was no longer with her. Even her old HOA allies stared in disgust. She looked like a trapped animal. That's when she tried one last desperate move. "Your Honor," she said suddenly, "Mr. Collins has been harassing me. He's ruining my reputation. He sent letters to my job, to my friends." I couldn't believe it. "Karen," I said, "you showed up to my house with 100 people, trashed my lawn, faked my signature, and now I'm harassing you?" The judge's patience had run out. "Mrs. Turner, enough. The evidence speaks for itself. You have repeatedly lied to this court, your neighbors, and law enforcement. This case isn't about community property anymore. It's about personal accountability." He leaned forward. "I am ruling in favor of Mr. Collins." Karen gasped. "The motion for injunction is denied. The counterclaims for trespassing, forgery, and fraud are upheld. Damages are awarded in the amount of $10 million, $100,000 per attending guest, to be paid collectively by Mrs. Turner and the event participants, as stipulated in the original filing." The room went silent. Even though I'd expected to win, hearing it said aloud hit differently. $10 million. Justice in full. Karen collapsed into her chair, face pale as chalk. Her lawyer tried to console her, but she pushed him away. "This isn't fair," she cried. "I did this for the community." The judge looked at her sternly. "You did this for yourself." Court adjourned. He slammed the gavel and it was over. As I walked out of the courtroom, cameras followed, microphones flashing. "Mr. Collins, how does it feel to win?" I smiled. "It's not about winning. It's about proving that no one, not even an HOA, is above the law." The story exploded nationwide. Lake Mansion lawsuit ends in $10 million judgment. News anchors debated it on talk shows. Legal analysts broke it down on podcasts. And HOA boards everywhere started checking their boundaries twice before planning their next barbecue. A few days later, I got a letter from the court clerk. Inside was a formal apology from most of the HOA members, handwritten notes from families who said they didn't know, who thanked me for standing up to her. Some even offered to help clean the property and pay their share. I accepted the apology. Not because I needed their money, but because it showed me something important. Karen's power wasn't real. It only existed because people were too scared to challenge her. Once someone finally did, the illusion shattered. Meanwhile, Karen disappeared from the neighborhood. Rumor had it she sold her house to pay the judgment and moved out of state. Her name became a cautionary tale, the HOA tyrant who went too far. As for me, life went back to quiet, the way it was supposed to be. The grass grew back, the lake sparkled again, and the only parties held at my mansion were the ones I actually hosted. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the lake, I sat on the porch with Lisa. She smiled and said, "You know, most people would have just called the cops and moved on." I laughed softly. Most people don't have 30 years of legal experience and a grudge against entitled neighbors. She grinned. "So, no regrets?" I looked out at the water, peaceful and golden. None. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to make them pay, literally. We sat there in silence for a while, watching the last rays of sunlight fade over the water. Then Lisa said, "You really sued 100 people." I smiled. "And won." A breeze rippled across the lake, gentle and calm. No shouting, no HOA letters, no chaos. Just peace. And for the first time in a long time, it finally felt like home. If you enjoyed this wild HOA showdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more crazy real-life revenge stories, and drop a comment about what you would have done if Karen tried to steal your mansion.